kick us off. Welcome everyone to another Elevate Lane County Working Wednesday in our spring series. Today's career readiness webinar and all of the spring series is sponsored by our partners at Selco Community Credit Union. Thank you, Selco, for your dedication to student success and education. My name is Lizzie Gray and I'm a project coordinator for Connected Lane County. Each Wednesday for just 3 more weeks, I can't believe that we're already here, we will be joined by a local professional who will walk us through a new career readiness skill. Joining us today to tackle the so important topic of resume building is Rachel Ulrich. Thank you for being here, Rachel. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell our guests just a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I'm glad everybody's here and hopefully you'll learn something in this process. I have been an HR professional and a banking executive and business executive for 20 plus years. And in the last 3 years, I've been doing consulting work for various companies around the area and up into Washington a little bit and even as far as Texas. So,
wow.
So getting to work with a lot of different companies and doing a lot of hiring and looking at tons of resumes in the last couple months in particular. There's lots and lots of activity going on in the hiring world right now. So I'm anxious to tell you about how to put together a really great resume.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. So I want to remind everyone who's on the call, we have some repeat guests and then I see some new names. So anyone who is joining us as a part of the Elevate Hiring Fair, please follow the link I just dropped in the chat to check in. I do want to let you know too that as a participant in a webinar, we can't see or hear you, but if you have a question for Rachel as she passes through her slides, please type it out into the comments or raise your hand if you'd like me to unmute you and you can ask your question aloud. All right, I think that we will get started. Go for it, Rachel.
Perfect. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen here. And just in case you weren't sure, you're in Resume Building 101. And just to get started, I'm going to have Lizzie read off any answers that come through, but how many of you already have a resume? So if you have a resume, if you could type it out there or raise your hand so Lizzie can give me an idea.
I'm seeing some hands. I'm going to assume I'm just counting those hands.
Yep.
So, oh my gosh, holy smokes, 2, 4, 6, 8, and I'll add mine, 9.
Okay.
Yeah, excellent. It looks like it's about split.
Okay, so I'm going to talk through this as though you're building your resume for the first time, and I'll try and throw in things about how to adapt your resume, and you may want to start over once you walk through this process with me. So first off, let's talk about what the goal is. The goal of a resume is to get you the interview, and the interview's goal is to get you the job. So you have to keep in mind, what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to accomplish? And really your resume is an introduction of yourself to a potential employer. And the main thing you have to remember is you're trying to make them picture you in their job. And so they give you clues on how to help them picture you in their job. So I'll show you how to look for the clues when you're looking at their job ads. So the steps we're going to walk through is first, we're going to talk about finding a good resume template. Then we're going to talk about finding jobs that interest you. And then we're going to write out your data in a way that it fits with the jobs that interest you. And then we're going to add a little bit of pizzazz to it. And then we're going to proof, and you can't proof enough. I have a story about an executive administrative assistant that I was hiring for a few weeks ago. And I had a person with really great experience, but she had a typo in her cover letter to me. And this is a position that will be doing a lot of our written materials. And for me, I had to eliminate her for not having taken the time to proofread her cover letter to make sure that she wasn't giving me a presentation that didn't represent what she wanted. So it does make a difference if you have typos in the cover letter or the resume. So first off, picking the right resume template. So I think there are three main places to get resumes. Obviously, you can get a resume template from your best friend, or you can look them up on the web. I tried to come up with 3 easy ways for you to find a template. So the first one is through Word. Word has something called resume templates, and they also have something called Resume Assistant. And we'll take a look at that in just a second here, but that's a really dynamic way to find something that looks like you, and then you personalize it to fit with your experience. The second is from Indeed. Indeed is a great place for looking at open jobs that are out there. What I love about Indeed is that it has bots that go out and scrape all the different places that have job postings. So websites for different companies or other posting sites like Craigslist and things like that. It will go out and look for other job postings beyond just those that have purchased a posting through Indeed. So they cast a wider net of what's out there, and they have quite a few tools that you can tweak to say exactly what it is you're looking for. So I like them for that, but I also like them because they give you the resource of a resume builder. And we'll take a look at those and how that helps you build something. And then you can take it and immediately start marketing it through Indeed. So the third option that I provided is one that I don't have samples from, but it's a really good third option to consider, especially if you think you're really going to struggle with putting together the document itself, printing it, or coming up with the words to put in it. WorkSource Oregon is a great place to call and tell them, hey, I need help putting a resume together and applying for jobs. And they don't have it immediately posted on their website, though I think you can dig through and do some searches to find it. But in some ways, it's easier to just call and get linked up with a professional who will help you build the resume and then help you go through the search process for what they have available. And they have a lot of access points, especially as far as skill building and other training for you to go through, or places that you can go in and learn new tricks of the trade or new trades even. And so I didn't post anything in this presentation about the resume building, but I want you to know it's out there as an option for you.
That's perfectly timed. Our webinar host 2 weeks ago was a gentleman from WorkSource Lane, and he talked to us about job search strategies. And so if anyone's curious to learn more about WorkSource, go to our YouTube channel, Connected Lane County, and take a peek at Austin's webinar. It was called Job Search Strategy.
Yes, I met Austin before. He's a great webinar. Yeah,
Yeah,
and very, very helpful. They are very, very helpful in finding something out there. So let's take a look at a couple of samples, and this is going to take a little bit of finagling to go outside of my PowerPoint, but bear with me, and we're going to take a second to look at this one.
It might be, oh, there you go. Great.
Okay, you see the red and white
Yes.
sample? Okay, so this is an example of a Word resume, a Word resume template. And they have, I think, a couple dozen options for you to look at. And so, go into Word and type in resume template, and it's going to pop up all their templates for you. Some of them are private ones that people have donated to the site or left as an open design, and others come right from Word itself. So I like this format actually quite a bit. I've used this one for helping people build their resumes. And so it's already put my name in just based on my name in Word. And any of these areas can be changed. So It says I can put in my profession or my industry. It can link to other properties or portfolios. I have a website, so I could link right to my website. I could also link right to my LinkedIn portfolio or my LinkedIn profile. And if you have a LinkedIn profile, I really recommend that you put it on your resume and connect it with a link. And when you're in LinkedIn, there is a way to, if you hunt around in there or do a search, it'll say, link my resume, and it will actually rename the link. Instead of it being this long numbers, you can click on it and rename it to say Rachel's resume or whatever. So it doesn't show up in your resume with this really long set of numbers and letters. And it's a nice way to be able to punch it through from the resume right to LinkedIn.
Okay.
So do you know what YN stands for?
I thought it was supposed to be your initials, but you forgot to change it.
No, yeah, so you're absolutely correct. So YN is your name.
Oh,
And
there
so
you go.
you would put your initials in there. So yeah, exactly. You have to go do the update. It just leaves it doesn't import that for some reason. And then it gives you little cheat sheet stuff in here to tell you what to put in. So for an objective, you click in here and you start typing just one or two sentences. So if you said to find summer employment to expand my skills,
So is
something
an
like that.
objective like somebody's goal?
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly. So what is your goal? Why are you submitting this?
Okay.
And a lot of times I've had some funny objectives that came through, some that have said to eventually take your job. Or and I'm like, okay, that's a reasonable objective, but tell me why you're applying for this job compared to the thousands of other jobs that are out there.
Right.
What's your goal for this one? And then your skills. This is something, and when we talk a little bit later in this presentation about identifying skills that this company is looking for, this is a good place to have referenced them. There are some skills that are almost universal. Attendance, punctuality is probably the better way to say that. So punctuality, self-starter, customer service focused. These are areas that almost every job is looking for somebody that has those skills. So you can put those pieces in. Later on, we're going to talk about how you expand on what those skills are, how you come up with examples. If you've had a job prior to this point, put that in the experience. I've had people ask me, how specific do I need to get as far as the dates? Do put at least the month and the year. You don't have to say it was April 26th or whatever, but don't put just, it was 2019 to 2020. Be more specific than that. In general, we don't have people go back more than 3 jobs.
Okay.
So as you are in the workplace and you're over the years adding more experience, the general rule of thumb is not more than 3 jobs and not more than 10 years looking back when you're applying for things.
Do they need to be the last like 3 consecutive jobs, or
Correct.
yeah, never don't ever skip a job?
No, and I had a resume recently that there was a 10-year gap in the years. And so my mind is like, were you in jail? What happened that you have 10 years you weren't in the workforce? And I sent her a note and said, there's a pretty big gap in there. Could you tell me what that's about? And she said, well, I was a stay-home mom and I didn't think I should put that on my resume. I said, please do put it on the resume.
Oh, okay.
So that you're not doing like me and thinking maybe you were in jail for that 10 years.
Okay.
So, I'd rather see, I've had some people skip it because they said, well, it's not relevant to the job I'm applying for. They don't care. I still want to know that you were continuously employed or what you were doing for the last, 3 to 5 years, et cetera.
There is a question in the chat, and CJ, you were reading my mind. Should we put anything if we have no work experience?
I was thinking about how to answer this because I wondered if this would come up.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably try and put things in there if you can, like babysitting, lawn mowing, make it something funny about household chores my mom made me do.
Okay.
Something in there just to have something that says, I'm not walking in with absolutely zero skills to use in your workplace.
Okay.
And if you can't think of anything, that's okay. I mean, they're going to understand by looking at it, this is your first job.
Yeah.
But it helps to make a little bit of an attempt.
What about an internship?
Internships are fantastic. They
Under
should
experience?
absolutely. Yeah, so this is not necessarily about being paid. If you were a Boy Scout volunteer, or you worked summer camp as a counselor, or if you you worked for your uncle at his business and you just ran errands.
Mm-hmm.
That's all relevant experience.
Okay.
And I would also include if you had responsibilities at school.
Yeah.
You do the announcements.
Yeah.
In the morning, or
Coffee cart.
right, or you do stats at the games. Those kind of things. I would definitely add that experience here. Especially if you're working concessions, that's working with money and customer service. That's very relevant to a lot of jobs. So don't leave those out. Education, it's totally, you should put in there what school you're going to now, what year you're at. So this says you may want to include your GPA and a summary of relevant coursework, awards, and honors. I would only put my GPA in there if you're at like a 3.5 or above.
Whoa.
Because all you're doing is pointing out that you're not quite at the top.
Okay.
You shouldn't walk into something and say, I'm not quite at the top.
Okay.
If you want to, if you feel like you fought really hard for something like that. But I for the most part, for me in the workplace, when I'm hiring, I could care less what your GPA is.
Yep.
I want to know, can you do my job that I have open?
I've never been asked about my GPA.
No.
Ever.
Or your permanent record.
Right.
All the times that you were told this is going to go in your permanent record, nobody's ever asked for a permanent record.
Okay.
So yeah, I wouldn't get terribly hung up. I'm more interested in hearing about those volunteer events that you did. Maybe if you have coursework that relates to what I'm hiring for. So, if you're in advanced algebra and I'm asking you to work in data entry, there may show a data focus there for me. I'd love to know what kind of keyboard work you've been doing. Did you take any classes? Or if not, we'll explain later where your skill sets are as far as writing, etc.
Okay.
And then obviously the awards and honors, definitely toot your own horn. You should tell us all about that. Volunteer experience or leadership, absolutely. Please put that information out. Anything that's going to show that you're a leader. And that can also include leadership in team sports. Not that you're the team captain, but if you're in a role on a team, that means something to me as an employer, that you've had to learn how to work with others and collaborate.
Yeah.
Down here, they've got email address, Twitter handle, telephone, LinkedIn. Only put the ones that you want me to contact you through. So don't put something in, like don't put your LinkedIn if you never look at your LinkedIn.
Okay.
Because I may try and contact you. Same thing with Twitter. Most of the time when I'm contacting people, I'm contacting them through phone or email.
Yeah.
If at all possible, if you have resumes out, please tell your family members that you're hoping for phone calls. Because too often I call places, especially when somebody's fairly new on the job search. And if I call and I get a mom who says, he's still in bed, who is this?
Oops.
And then I say who I am and they're like, oh, did he apply? It just doesn't start right. It
Sure.
just doesn't start right. So, prep the people that may answer the phone if you don't answer your phone.
Yeah.
And please check your messages.
Yeah, I was going to say two things before we move on. I will refer everyone back to the email, voicemail, and one other etiquette. Just phone etiquette. Remember to have an inbox set up, a voicemail inbox, and remember to keep it clear or with enough room to accept new messages. It's the worst to return a phone call and to not be able to leave a message, especially if phone is the only form of contact you have. So yeah, make sure that if you are putting your telephone number out there, that you're prepared to get calls back. And we do have a question in the Q&A. Do we include relevant coursework in the experience or the education tab? So you talked about, putting like advanced algebra. Would that go under experience or education?
So it depends a little bit if you have other experience or not.
Oh, okay.
So if you have experience and you can fill in experience with the job, use that space there. And then put the coursework down at the bottom where it talks about volunteers and leadership. I would highlight it there. Because you want experience to really jump out as having, being relevant experience. If you don't have any experience, then put the coursework there.
Okay. Good question.
It is a great question. So can you see a new resume format?
I can, yes.
Okay. So this is just another example from Word. And it's just a different layout. It's simpler. It's a little easier to read. It doesn't have as much, but honestly, if you look at it, it has basically the same information to it. When you get down here to the skills part, I like this part. This is what I wanted to highlight. List one of your strengths. If you can list out, 1 to 3 of your strengths, that would be really, really helpful. So I'm actually going to stop that one.
Okay, I have a question about just something I noticed on one resume and not the other.
Okay.
Is listing your physical address a thing of the past?
That's a great question. It is, for the most part, a thing of the past.
Okay.
And it used to be, I could tell from your area code on your phone whether you were local. I can't tell that anymore. And so I would say at this stage, I would be comfortable putting it in just so they know you're somebody local, especially for starting jobs. I would go ahead and do that. I have noticed for a lot of the jobs I'm placing right now that people are not putting it in, but then when I look through their experience, I can tell they're not local. They're sending me this from Texas or from Arizona. And then I start looking for the cover letter, and this is kind of a clue into something we'll talk about in a minute. But if there is a cover letter, I'm looking for them to tell me I've just moved to Oregon.
Okay.
Or I'm interested in moving to Oregon. If they're saying I'd be willing to relocate anywhere, I generally don't pay for relocation, and so I will discount that resume right then.
Okay.
So can you see what's on screen right now?
Nothing. I don't see that you're screen sharing. And we do have a question in the chat whenever you're ready, but maybe
go ahead and take that while I get this.
All right. Frankie asks, would doing some construction work / cleanup somewhere in your neighborhood with some people who've had experience with house construction and do some construction at school, would that be considered an experience?
Okay, let me make sure I'm understanding the question. So
it sounds like informal cleanup around the neighborhood.
With people that have done construction?
Correct.
So kind of getting some experience through osmosis.
Exactly.
Absorbing it from people that work in that. I think it's worth noting. You need to be careful that you don't misinform. That makes it sound like you actually have done the construction work, but rather that you maybe the way you phrase it is have done a cleanup work for such and such person from such and such company.
Okay.
And if they ask you, does that mean you're actually working at that space? You'd say, no, I'm actually doing some side work for them,
Okay.
but I really like that industry or something like that.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay. So now do we have, how does Indeed Resume Builder on screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm switching from Word Resume and I'm moving you over to Indeed. And so these are the things they have on their site on what they provide for you. So if you get onto Indeed and just put in Resume Builder, it will pop you right up to this page, basically. So they talk about effortlessly creating a resume. They have resume templates. I'm not going to go there. It's very, very similar to what we just saw in Word, but it does enhance it. It asks you more questions that would prompt you to fill in information. So I wanted to make sure I told you about this piece. So they say employer and robot friendly. Forget about the black hole. We'll help you build a resume that employers and robots, ATSs, are looking for. ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. And I would say 60 to 70% of employers, at least larger employers, are using ATS systems. And what that means is they may say, form an applicant tracking system. I'm looking for someone who will be a clerk, work the registers at the grocery store, and they need to have the following skills and experience. They need to be this age. Maybe they do or don't need a driver's license. So they're clicking through their ATS system, checking boxes on what they're going to require and what they're going to have preferred for the job. That system goes out to Indeed and any applications that are submitted through their site, either directly through Indeed or through the company's site. And it is reviewing, looking for keywords. And so that robot will then kick out a list to the hiring manager of, here's all the resumes that have what you said you're looking for. And then the hiring manager goes through those and decides, okay, am I going to review this? Am I going to call them and do a phone screening? Am I going to call them in for an interview? How do I proceed with this? So if you don't have any of those keywords, your resume doesn't even show up for them. They will never see it. And so we'll talk in a second, how do you make sure you have those words in your resume? Thousands of jobs in one click, and the resume template that works for you, so you can find exactly what works best for you. So let's talk about what you need to make sure you have in there, and we've kind of covered that a little bit. Each of the forms talks about it. You're going to give your basic information, name, address, phone, and email. We talked a little bit about address or no address. I will tell you, I've had some unusual ones that have said text only, which was interesting to me. Also interesting, if you go through Indeed, when you apply for a job, it sets up an email address that's just for that job for you. And so if I'm looking at my resumes on Indeed, when I post a job, and I see someone that interests me, I have to select, maybe it's like a yes, no, maybe. And then I have the option at the bottom to send you a message, and that message comes to the email that Indeed has set up for you. So it's not going to go to your regular email. But those notify you very quickly. I think you have the option to set those up to text you when you get a notification on there. And so my response time from applicants is really fast if I use that system. So just be on the lookout for it. Graduation date can be helpful, especially if you're looking for summer employment and you're actually looking for something that may be long-term, not just for the summer. A graduation date will tell me, and at some point you should tell me, that you're looking for more than summer employment. We talked about activities, community service, work experience, and then the pizzazz. So you got to make sure you got all your basics covered. And now you got to put in the extra stuff, the frosting, if you will. So you're going to start out by looking for job openings. You can look at LinkedIn or Craigslist. You can look at Glassdoor. There's some local postings, and I can't remember what they're called. Maybe you know, Lizzie. I don't know. These are kind of the biggies that I have used.
Mm-hmm.
And then we put stuff out on our corporate websites at whatever company I'm at. I'm sorry, I put LinkedIn and I meant Indeed.
Indeed. I was thinking also WorkSource has a really wonderful search tool too.
Yes, exactly. So start doing your searches, right? And so you're going to put in information on, you know, what kind of work are you looking for? And the great part on Indeed is you can not put anything specific. You can just say, show me every job in or Springfield or a zip code. It'll show you everything they have out there. You probably are going to want to then start narrowing, but it helps to start broad and then narrow. So you're going to look through the job ads and you're going to look for skills they need that you have. And you're going to look for experiences that you have that outlines those skills that they're looking for. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. Do watch out for requirements you don't have. So there's two terms, requirement and preferred. If something is required, it's an absolute. Don't even apply if you don't have what they've asked for. Some of them will require that you be a certain age.
Right.
Don't apply if you're under that age. You're just wasting your time. But a lot of times they'll say things like preferred, and it just means, you know, if they had their choice, they'd have somebody with that. But don't rule yourself out if you don't have something that's preferred. Then you're going to identify how your story matches what they need. And you need a little bit of creativity for that piece. And then you're going to tell your story. So let's take a look at an example. So let me see if I can pull up this Hertz ad. I'm going to pause the share, new share for the ad.
What's helpful is that I think a lot of the students on this call who are tuning in from the hiring fair have already identified jobs and job postings. And now it's just a matter of putting their best self forward and applying.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so can you see the Hertz Auto?
Yes.
Document? Okay, so here's the deal. I pulled out one that's pretty current, that's out on Indeed right now. And I've just copied out the main part of it. They have a lot about the company, etc. But what I've done is I've tried to go through and highlight the things that are important to you as you look through an ad. So I highlighted $15 an hour because, hello, why are you doing this if not for money? So it's always good to know what kind of pay they're offering for the job. But the higher in the entry or the introduction something is, the more important it is. And I pointed out customer service here, that customer service is a key piece to this job. So then I went through and I said, what else do they say they need? So you need to drive and park the vehicles. You need to make sure everything's clean. You need to make sure everything's clean. I think there's 3 other places that they say clean. So clean is important to them.
Clearly.
Very important. Then if you look at other responsibilities, they say, keep the work area organized. Perform related tasks as directed by managers. Car detailing experience preferred, not a requirement, preferred. This one they've highlighted, or they've made it bold, must have a valid driver's license and excellent driving record. If you have had several speeding tickets, do not apply for this job, because this means they will likely be pulling a driving record background on you. And if you know they're not going to like it, don't waste your time. Just not worth it. So this one made me wonder. So it says ability to drive multiple types of vehicles. They don't specify it. It makes me wonder if they're meaning, can you drive an automatic and a manual? If you can, it would be worth highlighting
Yeah.
when you point this out. Effective verbal communication skills with customers, coworkers, and management. Able to work days, weekends, and holidays. Must be 18 years of age, so that's a requirement.
Okay.
And must be able to work outside year round. So if you absolutely cannot be out in the rain or have really bad seasonal allergies, or you cannot function when you're cold, don't apply for this job.
True.
Be sure to not put yourself in a position of applying for something you will hate, hate, hate.
Yeah.
And then down here they put, they kind of repeat: driving, washing interior, exterior of the vehicle. And this is the first time they threw in the computer. Knowledge of equipment operations such as computer terminal and telephone is required. So those are important. So I've highlighted these pieces because these are things you're going to find a way. You're going to pick 3 of these at least that you feel like you could give examples of how you meet those requirements or preferences. So what that could look like, okay, talk about cleaning. So if you had something about in your skills that says, this is the creative piece, it says clean freak, known amongst my friends as the person that has to have everything exactly lined up, or something like that, that kind of outlines how clean focused you are or organized you are. Or if you put organize, all my folders are color coordinated or something, it's going to catch their eye. It's going to tell them something about your skill sets, even if you've never done it in a job. I know that if somebody's a neat freak at home, they're probably a neat freak on their desk. And same thing with organizational skills. If you can keep a high school schedule organized these days and all the projects, you can do anything in an office. So highlight that to me. Tell me that story. One other part I wanted to point out in here. Okay. Perform related tasks as directed by managers. When you're in school, you get directions from the teacher manager all the time. So finding a way to relate that direction from an authority figure and say, perform tasks assigned by my teachers in a timely and efficient manner, continuous feedback on my articulate work, or, something that basically exhibits that, hey, I'm used to working with managers. They just called something different in the classroom.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that is all. Here, I thought this was interesting too. High school or equivalent preferred. So you do have to be 18 to have this job. That was somewhere else. But you don't have to have your diploma yet. And if you are going more from an equivalency standpoint, that's okay. They're okay with it because they're saying preferred.
Great.
But they are saying your driver's license is required. I thought this was really kind of funny, dependable, more reliable than spontaneous. They don't care if you're funny. They want to know they can count on you. So how can you exhibit that?
So if you read a comment like that and you've added some pizzazz that are kind of jokey in your resume, would you take those jokes out, or would you keep them?
I like a little bit of humor,
Mm-hmm.
but it can't sound like
you're not taking it seriously, or
right, and it can't. So it's going to tell me one thing that can be good and bad. It's going to tell me you have a sense of humor.
okay.
I don't know if that means you're going to be the clown and not get your work done. So if your words tell me I am like so remarkably organized and on the spot and I'm funny, I like that candidate. If you're the clown, I'm going to be like, yeah, I don't need you and your attitude in here. Be perfectly honest. Okay, so now my issue is how the heck do I get back to sharing the screen. Okay, here we go.
You're back.
I'm back. Okay. So tying it together with what they need. This is a little bit about what we were talking about. So maybe some of your wording is, as far as the stuff they put in there as requirements, if you were putting on at A team with a driver's license, I meet the position requirements. I am available to work weekends, weekdays, and have the flexibility to come in when you need me. So here's another piece. Don't assume I know. So when I'm reading something, if you don't specifically tell me something I asked for in my ad, like weekends and weekdays,
Okay.
I say you have to work weekends and weekdays. Don't say, interesting. Tell me you can.
Okay.
I put it in there.
And is this text going in a cover letter? And if not, where does it go in the resume?
It depends, again, on how much material you're able to get into that resume. So if you're feeling like your resume is light,
Okay.
I would put this text in under the skills, or
Okay.
there was a strength piece of it. This is where I'd put a strength piece in.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would put it in the cover letter. But again, some people are like, well, there's nothing on my resume. So
Right.
you
It's fun
fluff
filler.
out some of these things, but it should always tie back to the ad.
Okay.
I'm known as a person to go to for putting together a plan for a project or event. Give an example of you doing it. I'm a team player. I'm maybe a starting role on the basketball team, or I've been class secretary, something that tells me that you've experienced these things. I'm a self-starter, known for my organizational plan. So that's kind of that part. All right, so do I need a cover letter? And so the answer to this is officially maybe. So I told you about the robots, right? That the robots are out there taking a look through the applicant tracking system. And 90% of the time they ignore the cover letters. And so they're only looking at the resume, and sometimes they won't even look at your resume. They make you refill all those pieces in their forms to make it easier to pull that data out. And in those cases, your poor, beautiful cover letter that explained everything goes unnoticed. I love cover letters because they tell me the part I'm trying to read between the lines of the resume and understand what you're looking for. Why are you applying for this job? Tell me why you're different than everybody else I looked at. So if you can do a cover letter and put it out there, know that they may never read it, but if they do, hopefully it highlights all the things you wish you could tell them. So one other thing, I'm going to say it now while I'm thinking of it. Am I saying that you should personalize every single resume you send out to the jobs you're applying for? And my answer to that is maybe. Hopefully you can put out there a resume that lists skills that are fairly universal to any job. And then you can just leave those in the resume. Then your personalized piece happens on your cover letter. If you feel like there's something really particular that is in your experience for that job, do go back and change your resume to point that out, just to make sure you get the credit where you want it. And again, remember, those robots are out there looking for keywords. So if you haven't put in keywords from their search into your resume, you're not going to get grabbed by that ATS system. So that may be worth changing your resume for, just to make sure you match up as a high. And they'll give us, as hiring managers, they give us a percentage match. So I may say this, I'll look at anybody who has 80% of a match of my requirements and up.
Okay.
And so if you only put one thing that matched, you probably won't show up.
Okay.
Final step, proofread it. Proofread it. Then have somebody else proofread it.
So I want to, on this platform, I want to vow that any students who send me their resume and ask me to proofread, I swear on this platform I will do it. You all have my email. You're all applying for jobs right now. Please, please, please send me your resume. And I might even send it to a coworker or two and we can all proofread it. So just, I needed that to be said on video.
It's recorded.
It is recorded.
So that's it. That's what I have.
Great.
Questions?
Yes, so there's two in the Q&A. One I answered by typing, but I do want to let everyone know that this slideshow will be available and we will email it to all participants after the webinar. Rachel, I'm sure will send it to us maybe before the end of the day, and then we can get it out to everyone.
Absolutely.
And then the next question is, can you clarify what a cover letter is? And that's a great question, and I want to also highlight, Rachel, I'm sure you will answer this, but just to highlight that we did our webinar last week was all about cover letter writing. So Rachel will give you a nice overview, but if you want a more in-depth look at what cover letters are and how to write them, we have an awesome webinar from last week on our YouTube channel, and I'll put the link to our YouTube channel in the chat while Rachel answers.
Okay, I need to go back in here and I will show you one. Go back. Here. All right. Pause share, new share.
And here's the link to our YouTube channel. All kinds of career readiness skills that are super relevant, especially when you're applying for jobs.
Cool. Okay, so here's a sample of a Word cover letter. And I don't know if Indeed has cover letters too, but Word does have templates. So this is one I picked, and it basically gives you the starting words. And here it says, click in here, use your cover letter to show how your talent and experience will solve a problem or drive results. And so this is personalized. It's usually pretty short and sweet. It's what you would say to them if you were told, okay, you've got 15 seconds to explain why I should hire you for this job. This is what you're going to say. It definitely needs to be proofed, and it definitely needs to kind of showcase your personality a little bit, hopefully a little bit of writing style. Don't be afraid to have other people help you snazz up the language a little bit.
Definitely. Okay, awesome. And then again, a really like an hour long in-depth talk about cover letters can be found on our YouTube channel.
Perfect.
When we were shown the 3 main templates for a resume, are these templates the best to use when looking to get a job?
No, not necessarily.
No? Okay.
And so I guess what I mean is you should pick one that feels like you.
Yep.
So the red one, white one, I liked it. I would have liked it to be blue instead of red. There are others that I'm like, ew, that's boxy. I don't like it. So they're all good because they require you to fill in the necessary information, but the look of them, you pick what feels good to you. And know that for ATS systems, they don't even show us sometimes the resume itself.
Wow.
They're just pulling the data out of it and showing me how you answered. So sometimes I can't even see that beautiful formatting you put in.
But pick one that fits you. I remember scrolling through so many templates on Word to find one that spoke to me. Yes. And I did, and it's blue. My coworker chimed into the chat as well, and she is also volunteering to proofread resumes and cover letters. So you have us at your disposal, so use us. Okay, I have a question about how long should a resume be?
It really should be 1 page.
Okay.
If you've been in a professional role, like let's say you're a doctor, I can see those going to 2 pages. They should never go more than 2 pages. And so unless you've got 20 years of experience, mine is 2 pages because I'm very talk. But for most people, you should be able to get it condensed down to one page.
Okay. And I think for all the people on the call, we should do
Okay.
one page.
So the exception is if you're going to make a second page, and it doesn't have to be as part of your resume, but it can, is if you're going to have references on a separate sheet or at the bottom of a first sheet that kind of ran over, then use that space wisely and add 3 references.
And don't they typically ask for references either embedded into their application or they ask you to attach an additional reference page?
Yeah, one of the places I'm working right now will only ask for the references if we're pretty sure we're going to make an offer.
Yes, I've heard of that as well.
Mhm.
Okay. Should your resume be sent as a Word document, a PDF, a link to a Google document? What do employers prefer?
Word is probably the preferred.
Really? Not
yeah.
PDF? Okay.
Well, PDF also, because it doesn't go through funky formatting changes.
Exactly.
It comes over. And so in some ways it's nice because they're cemented. It's going to look on my screen the way it looked on your screen when it left.
Yeah.
I would not use Google Forms because a lot of the companies, their IT departments will not let Google Forms in because they don't think there's enough network security.
Okay. Very good to know. Okay. If my resume is over one page, what should I eliminate or edit first to get it down to one page?
Mm.
So rule of thumb is 3 jobs, no more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even it's just a formatting thing. If your resume takes up a ton of blank space just to look cool, you might pick a different template.
That's excellent advice. Like that first one I showed,
Mm-hmm.
it does use a lot of design space. And so that may not be a good one if it's pushing you over. I like it because if you don't have a lot to put in, it still looks like a full page.
Okay, great. So back to references. So say I have 3 professional references. They're not family members. They're, I guess they could be coaches or coworkers or past bosses. And I apply for a job and I get the job. Do I need to tell them again when I reapply for a new job in 2 years that I've listed them as my reference?
Yes.
So calls should not be out of the blue. You should never catch a reference off guard.
Right. Because you want them to have already rehearsed how wonderful you are.
Yeah.
And not be trying to pull it out of their memory banks.
True. And I feel like it shows an extra layer too, behind the scenes, coordination because you're interested in getting this job.
Right. The other piece that it does is I can't tell you how frustrating it is. We call references all the time. In fact, we had this happen last week. We wanted to make a job offer,
Oof.
but we couldn't reach 2 of the 3 references. And we called and left messages. There were no callbacks. So we finally called the candidate and said, can you give us some other names?
Oh, okay.
And they finally texted one of the references and had them call us. And then they gave us another name. So that's really frustrating.
Yeah.
And, if we didn't like them so much, we might have moved on to another candidate.
Okay. That's good to know. So I feel like too, in that conversation with your reference, you would confirm that their email is still what you have it listed as and that their phone is still what you have it listed as.
Correct.
Okay. How often should one update their resume? I heard a 3-month rule. Every 3 months.
That would be really awesome. I have never done that. Definitely whenever a job is ending, especially if it's a short term or a part-time one, catch it while it's still fresh in your head. I think at least annually it makes sense to dust it off. Even more important is the LinkedIn piece. If you are going to continue kind of keeping your vibe out there, because every time you refresh something on LinkedIn, it sends a new blast out to everybody that you're connected to and kind of reminds them, hey, I'm here.
Wow.
And they're like, oh, look, they did something different. They did something new. So it kind of brings you back up to their attention.
Okay. CJ asks, who should and shouldn't be used as references? Fabulous question.
Very good question. Don't use your mom.
So
Don't
no
use your,
family.
yeah. Family in general is not a great idea. Ministers are not necessarily a great idea.
Okay.
Teachers are definitely a good idea. Don't use a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
True.
Even friends necessarily aren't the greatest, though the exception to that is if you were on a project team with somebody and they're your friend, that's fine. But if they can vouch for the work you did on a project, that could be helpful and could be a good one, especially if you're having a hard time figuring out three.
What about coaches or like band instructors?
Coaches are really good
Okay.
references.
Okay, great. I do want to put out a last call. We have 3 short minutes before our time is up. So last call for questions. While you're typing those out, because I know that's what you're doing, I have 2 more quick questions.
Okay.
Should I bring paper copies of my resume to a job interview?
Yes, I love that question. You shouldn't have to, but do anyway, because inevitably somebody in the room, especially if it's a team panel and somebody got yanked in at the last second
Mm-hmm.
to sit in on the interview, won't have been given it or didn't print it out. And so if you're if you're saying, does anybody need a copy of my resume? It makes you look fabulous.
Yeah, I've left at least 30 minutes early to be early to a resume to stop at the FedEx or UPS to you print using, I don't have a printer, but it's that important. I totally agree.
Yep, completely.
Rachel, what adjectives are overused on resumes? Do you see any and you're just like, ugh, not this again?
Probably the word very.
Oh,
I'm very this, I'm very that, I'm
okay.
very this. It's not so much an adjective, but run-on sentences
Okay.
drive me batty when I read them on a resume. Go
Okay.
ahead and use proper punctuation and split up those sentences into bite-sized pieces for me when I'm reading them. Yeah, I don't know that I have any other pet peeve ones.
Okay, well, that's good. That one's good to know. Everybody avoid very. All right, well, we are at time. Thank you so very much to all of the students on the call and to Rachel for giving us an hour of your time and imparting all of this insight on us.
Absolutely. Thanks for the great questions, you guys. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck to everyone. We will see you next week for Interviewing 101, as well as the drop-in hour for the hiring fair from 10 to 11. We can review your resumes, help you with job applications, and do some mock interviewing. So we will see you all shortly, and I will send these slides by the end of the day. All right.
Awesome. Go
Bye.
get a job.
Yeah, go get a job.